Welcome back to Rational Discourse Weekly, episode 20, filmed on Monday, May 6th, 2013. I'm William Garrison.
And I'm Michael Aune.
And this week we talk a little bit about the meshing of science and religion.
Yeah, just, nothing too technical, but just kind of going over the idea of where the questions sort of lie with each. Do they overlap a little bit? Is there cause for science to be concerned with questions of religion and vice versa? So, some fun give and take between the two noble magisteria. It's good stuff. You should stay tuned.
So this week I wanted to talk a little bit about science and religion. I'd seen something on Reddit about kind of a discussion thread about their compatibility, how some of that gets discussed. Because it seems that some religious people out there want to think that their beliefs kind of intertwine perfectly with science, that even if we find out more about the universe or more about anything, really.
What's his name?
That
Stephen Gould's separate magisteria, the idea that they seek to answer different questions, and so there's no conflict. There's no inherent conflict between them. Stephen J. Gould? I know it's Gould. I'll have to look that up. In any case, yeah, it's a common tactic now to say, even the Catholic Church is, in a sense, doing it. Like, yeah, evolution and all that, that's cool. Big Bang Theory, sure, fine, it's all awesome, it's legit. Doesn't mean that the Bible isn't still fundamentally true. Science is just revealing God's works, which, I mean, you can get away with it to a point, I grant that.
Well, as someone that doesn't believe that's how science and religion kind of mesh or work, it's interesting because if you use the obviously, we're going to talk. We're going to use the Bible as a starting point here. If you look at the Bible on its face, especially the early chapters where it talks about the making and creation and layout of the universe, or
basically Genesis, the first couple books of Genesis.
What's interesting that I find is it has this like wild-eyed, mysterious view. It's the same kind of thing that gets kids interested in science, like just knowing that the universe is so vast and stuff. It's weird that the Bible wouldn't mention things like that. Wouldn't mention that.
Well, it's only weird if it's supposed to be really accurate.
Yeah.
First of all, even the concept, like, people always talk about how, God created the universe out of nothing. Well, sort of talks about like God over the waters of creation and all that, implying that there was already stuff. So it's like we're literally 2 verses or something into the Bible, and we're already encountering problems. It doesn't. We're on page 1,
right?
And people are already interpreting it in different ways. So we're just off for another, 700 to 900 pages, I think, depending on your interpretation you're using. Plenty of room for fudging the numbers, as it were.
Yeah, I just find it interesting. And the only reason, at least I think logically, you'd use the Bible as a starting point is because the Christian religion doesn't exist without the Bible. And that's, science aside, that's always been kind of a funny argument to me, is how they seem to want to defend or say that they don't even need the Bible to be completely factual. And I know logically they don't need the Bible to be completely true in order for a God to exist. It just makes
how else would you know? Like, if you don't have an authoritative source to go to, right. I mean, yeah, it's one of those weird things. Sure, you don't need the Bible once you know Jesus, but how do you come to Jesus if not through his teachings, which are in the Bible?
Right.
It's a cart before the horse type thing.
It's not like he has...
After the fact, sure, no more Bible for you. But before that, how else are you going to hear the good news?
Right. It's not like you can visit him in person and then...
And you don't want to rely on a 2,000-year-old game of telephone. Well, no, Johnny heard from Susie, who heard from...
That he turned water into wine.
Yeah.
Could have been water into Bud Light Lime or something.
Well, he actually just turned people into bees. Lesser known miracle. And there's people. It was bad. Not the bees. Can we splice in 10 seconds of that footage?
I'll try.
Now?
Yeah.
I think that would get around any copyright infringement. I hope that happens. I won't know until I watch this after he's done editing it if you made movie magic happen. But I hope that at this point you've all had a good laugh.
Courtesy.
If you don't know what we're referring to, well, now you do. I hope, and you're welcome.
Yes.
Anyway,
but it seems weird when you talk about the science and religion meshing argument, because if you go through the Bible and try to like attach the Word of God to what we now know as science of molecules and other planets, and the law of thermodynamics and physics and all of these things, they're not spelled out in the Bible. Some things aren't even mentioned.
Yeah, you throw any of the laws of thermodynamics into Deuteronomy, and I'm way more inclined to be like, dude, there's some shit that's going on right here. Yeah, I shouldn't have fabrics of two different, cloths or whatever, two different fibers. Oh, and by the way, entropy always increases in the universe. And you're like, people are like,
when was this written?
I don't even know what that means. What's entropy?
Going to another book, I don't know much about the Quran, but anytime I have debates on Twitter with Muslims, it usually revolves around how the Quran is so scientific, how it talked about blood cells and how it talked about molecules and stuff before anyone did. But when you read the passages, or all you have to do is Google Quran and science or contradictions, and the passages that they take to read into this stuff is insane.
Well, it's the Nostradamus effect. It's
yeah.
No prophecy actually, again, if it said, hey, by the way, Americans, I know no one knows what that is yet, but Americans, watch out. September 11th, year 2012.
They're never specific. It's like...
watch out for planes. I don't know what those are. They're like big bird things in my mind, but when one of those is flying at a building, you know some shit is up. Then I go, sweet. When they're like, when the two brothers collapse, or, when the two brothers are consumed and war rages, and you're like, that...
Oh, that sounds exactly like 9/11, even though it didn't say it. It's reading into...
When he has an address, by the way, hey, World Trade Center, don't go there. On this date, you should be somewhere else. Now, I'm listening. Same thing with Quran. It's like, I know one of the things I saw was about, like the evolution of the fetus. And you're just like, no, you're really reaching to try and say that actually, is justified in saying, no, this is actually what happens. Now, you can interpret it in such a way to say that's not wrong, but that's the same way the Catholic Church says that there's no conflict with evolution or the Big Bang in Christian theology. Well, yeah, after the fact, it's always easy to finagle things. Just a little massage in here, a little finagle in there.
Yeah. Talking about reading into the text, I've brought it up many times before. I know you and I have both talked about it. As humans being pattern-seeking mammals, it's one of the reasons why we're conspiracy theorists. It's easy for us to read into something.
Oh, we see intentionality everywhere. We see
horoscopes, which are something skeptics like us are, usually completely against, is because there's no science behind it. If my horoscope says you're a good person, you should hang out with your friends this weekend. What divine piece of information? What supernatural epiphany did this hand to me? I don't. And what's funny is it seems like, let's say it said something about your relationship will advance or something, and you get engaged that weekend. You're going to remember that. But if it says you'll come into a lot of money this weekend and you don't, it's out of your mind. It's kind of an interesting way that we have of remembering details.
Well, it's one of those weird, and this is actually just a fact, apparently, about human memory. There's a reason why, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, your memories as a kid are way more vivid. Like, you remember shit from your childhood like it was yesterday. Like, you remember the smells. You're like, I had this whole adventure in the woods, and there was like a dragon, and it was awesome, and you're 5, and everything's amazing. And then you make memories now, and I don't know, it does sort of feel like, all right, same old, let's toss that in the thing. Well, apparently, it's because the human brain is wired to take in anomalies. It remembers things that stand out of the noise. So things that are unique. That's why your trip to Venice is something you'll remember way more than your trip to Florida, because the trip to Florida, more or less the same as anywhere else you've gone. But I can remember almost every detail of 3 weeks in Germany and Italy because it was the trip that I only have one thing. It stands out. All these experiences were unique.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's the same sort of principle, though, where, like, things don't happen all the time. Expectations are fall through, and then, but the one time those things line up and that little miracle happens, your brain's like, ding, ding, ding. File that shit away in awesome, under A for amazing.
And how we'll tie that into science is basically that there's no science behind these miracles. They're just random occurrences that your brain, because of how it stores that information, chooses to sort of highlight it.
And as a certified neuroscientist, which I am not.
I was like, he's got breaking news, everyone.
I'm a liar. Congratulations. No, I am. The only certificate I hold recognizable to the general public is a BA in philosophy. Yay! Which makes me oddly qualified for this and not much else.
Yeah, to be a professor, to write books, something like that.
Yeah. Try and use my brain.
But going back to science and religion, you know, the thing that commonly gets brought up against Christianity and the Bible in general is how they don't make any reference to, you know, dinosaurs, which we didn't find out until later because of the fossil record, and that was kind of like the history of animals that we had no idea because they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, Genesis is pretty moot on dinosaurs. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, and they try to make weird, like, any mention of beast or, like, reptile or something, they try to make that launched. I'm pretty sure if there was a Tyrannosaurus Rex on Noah's Ark, you'd fucking remember that shit.
The Patasaurus. Hey, that thing's 110 feet long. Actually, they were like, I think, 80 to 90 feet long. Diplodocus, 120 feet long. What?
Already, not including dinosaurs, the math that's given in the Bible for the size of Noah's Ark wouldn't fit the animals that exist today.
No, it wouldn't fit the insects that were there today, from what I understand. The boat would just explode, and then you'd be horribly eaten by 2 of every insect, which is about the worst thing in the world. Barring insects, you're still, I mean, okay, the problem there is you get divine intervention. The interpretation is always, well, God did it.
Right, it's like Doctor Who's, I don't watch Doctor Who, sorry.
Oh, it's bigger on the inside.
The TARDIS?
The TARDIS, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to fix this, by the way. The travesty of TV justice.
It's on my list of shows to watch. But
it shouldn't be on the list. It should just be the list.
Maybe Noah's Ark is like the TARDIS.
Oh my God, are you saying that Noah's Doctor Who?
Correct.
And we solved the Bible.
And that he's also not real.
And we're done. I'd much rather have Doctor Who than any religious figure.
I don't deny that someone named Noah didn't exist once, but he didn't live longer than...
Noah didn't. Not that. I mean,
no. A person named Noah. I'm not saying that Noah.
Oh yeah, no. There are people named Noah. Yes,
but they did not live over 100 years.
But it's just a story that's been floating around the Middle East. The Bible is the flood is not unique. The flood's not even new, which actually could be scientifically based. There is evidence that at some point the Mediterranean it was the Black Sea, may have broken its banks and basically flooded that region. So there would have been horrible floods all along the coast where people would have been living in large numbers. And so it would have been something that people would have remembered. It became a cultural memory because it pops up in Babylonian lore.
Well, and then
in Greek lore,
and then Hebrew. Over playing the game telephone, and then they're like, "All right, we need to put this, divine book together. We'll use it in one of our stories to talk about cleansing the earth." And what's interesting is like those kinds of events happen today. Natural disasters are still common, some worse than have ever seen before. Stuff like that, Hurricane Katrina, the tsunami in Japan, California has been going through earthquakes.
How about the tidal wave in? Why the hell can I not remember this?
Like the one they had the movie about?
Yeah. Indonesia.
Yeah.
That just wrecked, was 250,000 plus dead.
Yeah. In
a matter of 30 minutes. I mean, unreal. I mean, it will hit the whole Indian Ocean basically, but
so it seems like it's kind of funny how these events, like the Great Flood and
Yeah.
stuff, even though obviously different civilizations have different records of what happened or how it happened or who was affected, and but how in today, partially because of the advancement of science, we have technology, we have cell phones. Google has, wearable computing now that you either look up and say, okay, Glass, record a video, and you're recording in a couple of seconds, or you can hold down the camera button, start recording immediately.
Yeah.
It's like this story wouldn't get out of hand because we'd have recorded data showing it.
One thing, all of these events predate written history.
Right.
The Sumerians were doing it, 3,000, 2,500 BC, I think? Or BCE. I don't know. I don't know what terminology we should use. But, there are so many ways. There's so many ways to come at this problem. It's a philosophical problem, ultimately. So, you can get caught up in the nitpickiness of the examples. So, it's just too easy, and ultimately, you can pull the jujitsu move of, well, no, you're interpreting it literally, not metaphorically, and the way I mean is. So, you kind of got to step back, and the fight in philosophical circles tends to take place at a very, very high level. You don't worry about any particular book. You simply say, if the religion is making truth claims about the way the world is in some way, whether it's supposed to be interpreted metaphorically or literally, whether it's supposed to be about why we're here, not how we're here. The idea is that is where you have the fight between the scope of science and the scope of religion.
All the debates you see online with famous atheists and famous theists are generally at that higher level. They don't generally attack specific Bible verses and now, stories and so forth.
I think that the specifics matter in a sense, because I think a lot of times what happens is people will say that there's no overlap, but then quickly dive into specifics that seem to contradict that same claim. So, if you claim that this is the true word of God, and you've got, I think it was Joshua or Daniel, I don't know, the sun stopping in the sky. Yeah. You claim that, well, you're supposed to give them an extra, I think it was 24 hours to slaughter their enemy. Okay. That's not really allegorical sounding, so I'm going to need some serious justification for why I shouldn't interpret it that way. And so the battle is still at the higher level. You're still trying to say, what sort of claims are you making as an entity? As a religion, what is your focus? What is it that you're actually speaking to? But then, at some point, you do sort of have to wade into the muck and say, well, that seems pretty literal. That's not a joke. Sun stopped. People died. 24 hours.
That or anything revolving around Jesus' life. It seems to be written literally, so not to dive into that too much, but it's...
Well, no, but again, that's sort of it's important that Jesus existed, because his sacrifice is not supposed, at least most people would interpret it, I think in most Christian traditions, it's not allegorical. It's important because it happened. So if it's supposed to be literal truth, that Jesus was manifested in this world as an avatar of God, or an extension of God, however you want to interpret it, and then he was killed as a sacrifice to atone for man's sin, well then, it needs to have happened. Because if it's just metaphorical, at least Christianity as we know it, for the vast majority of sects, sort of ceases to be what it currently is. So, is there an interpretation where the allegory is all that matters? Well, yeah, you go to Gnostic Christianity, and the whole thing's supposed to be a metaphor for higher metaphysical truths. So, yeah, you can get around the issue, but it's not recognizable as the entity that it started off as, in which case, I think that means that science does have something, at least a scientific method, truth about the world, does have something to say that will affect religious truth, because that completely changes how you would understand Christianity. And I think if you completely rewrite the definition, then are we really talking about the same thing, or are you just playing name games to hold on to your position?
Style. We've talked about it before, but I don't think they're hinging points in which atheists would believe in something versus when theists would stop believing in something. I think if you are completely true in your beliefs, there's almost nothing that would stop you from believing. Like, literally, science could explain anything and everything in this universe.
No.
And you could be like, well, God lives outside the universe, therefore he exists.
Well, there's always wiggle room, but eventually you're going to have to say, well, then what are you giving up?
Well, and no, what I'm trying to say is that the breaking point for most theists seems to be the more discussion. We think discussion is very important. That's one reason why we do this podcast in general. But we think the discussion is a breaking point enough to be like, well, your beliefs are irrational and illogical, and here are the reasons why, and here's the reasons why it's not a bad thing to live under the assumption that all of these religions aren't true, that they don't have enough, that they haven't met the threshold or standard for proof.
Well, and I think, too, to be fair, we generally what I think I believe is stuff that is justified by the other things that I believe. You know, it's kind of a mesh network. Everything helps support everything else. That does mean that I can pull one belief out and the whole structure doesn't collapse, which is, it's not like a vertical belief system where you have a strict foundational belief, which is sort of what religion has, generally speaking, in my opinion. I think most people's like, if you yank God out of the equation, the whole edifice comes down. Whereas if I pull, I don't know, if someone tweaks Planck's constant, my whole worldview does not collapse. But that is, to me, apparently for the physical sciences, apparently pretty damn important and would potentially have the same effect. Like, if it was the same sort of, this number is super, super important to so many other things. Well, okay, but you can tweak that and then it will, like, adjust.
Well, and if nothing else, in science, what it does is it unravels other mysteries, like the Higgs boson. I've seen some interesting videos on what
and science works, bitches.
What science discoveries seem to point to, or they're answers that help you make other questions. See, scientists aren't afraid to ask questions.
Science is a never-ending enterprise of asking, well, what then?
The questions are what keeps scientists in business, in a sense.
Yeah, the day you answer all the questions is the day life gets really
And this is the problem with religion. You start with an answer, and all the other questions that come from everywhere else in the world, you deflect with that answer. And I don't think that's genuine. I don't think it's rational. And obviously, it doesn't mesh well with science, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think the ultimate advantage to science is I say, here's the things that's been justified to me. Here's this thing that I believe is true. Here's how we got to that belief. And I can point to literature, scientific experiments, previous instances where this was shown to be demonstrably true. It's not that it clinches it in like the absolute sense, but I can provide you with evidence. I can always give you a reason. And it's not going to necessarily answer the whole question, because it's usually a small point. It's going to answer this little question, but then that little question will inform the next answer and the next question and the next answer. And that, to me, is what religion lacks, is the ability for me to go to you and say, hey, here's this cool thing based on all of this work and evidence. Check it out for yourself. If you want to backtrack and do some fact checking and see if it checks out, you're more than able to. You can reproduce it if you got the resources. Religion with especially when you retreat to personal religion, it lacks that, and I think that it's weaker for it. It means I can't ultimately attack it maybe out of existence, because you're just going to go, well, it's personal. It's just the way I interpret it and my relationship. And I go, okay, cool. You can keep that, but you don't get to make any other claims about other shit. All right? It stops at your mouth.
Yeah.
You can believe it all in your head. The moment it leaves and starts to encroach on reality, objective reality, something we can agree on that's out there, and now we got problems. And that's when, that's why you got to fight creationism or intelligent design and all that, because that's where that belief comes out of your head and into my world. And that's when I have a problem with it.
And it's good that we challenge it. This will be the last point. It's good that we challenge it. And I think one of the reasons why most fundamental Christians, people that believe in the Bible literally, that, consider their religion the one and true religion, and basically try to deny other worldviews. It's not as much a problem for them because living here in America, like, they're pretty much siloed. That's where a lot of the hate towards Muslims has come from. That's where the hate towards any secular groups come from. Yeah. People blasting the Freedom from Religion Foundation from getting rid of this Jesus memorial, or getting rid of this cross, or getting rid of this nativity scene. This is the first time that some of these people have had their views challenged. Yeah. And we're just here to say, deal with it.
Yeah, I'm not here to be an asshole, but I'm also not here to play nice. And again, when it leaves your brain, it comes out your mouth. That's when
we have a problem.
You are giving me the right, I think, to engage back. Now my thoughts get to leave my mouth.
Yeah, there's a right to free speech, and if you have the right to, say out loud, praise Jesus, you'll go to hell if you don't believe in stuff.
Yeah.
I have a right to say back to you, you're an idiot, or something. Shut your mouth, whatever. And with free speech, it goes both ways.
Don't be an asshole.
Free speech allows you to be an asshole.
Don't be a dick. Also,
free speech allows you to be a dick, but at the same time, someone can call you on being that dick. People don't have to be your friends. People don't have to talk to you. So we're looking at you, Westboro Baptist Church.
No, wait. Okay, let's close on this. Apparently, if you haven't already heard this, they are going to picket the gentleman, I cannot remember his name, but I think he was the guitarist for Slayer.
Yeah.
Who died. God, it just sounds like a horrible death from a spider bite. He got necrosis in his liver. I mean, it's just horrible, horrible thing. And so now, I guess, because, they were one of the thrasher metal bands.
Devil music.
Yeah, they were.
According to them.
So the Westboro Baptist Church is going to go picket a bunch of Slayer fans. So we may be coming back in a week, and there will be no more Westboro Baptist Church. Which I don't wish violence on anyone, but I can't say it would be just the tiniest bit funny.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, turns out military funerals are one thing. Slayer fans are a whole nother level of don't mess with that. So
we'll report on that story as it develops.
I just hope that there are some comical photos of people not being hurt.
Yeah.
But we shall see.
But that'll do it. Thanks again for watching. As usual, we'll always have articles related to atheism, related to some of our other hobbies, Magic the Gathering being one of them.
Yeah, there will have been. Very weird. We always podcast before I publish the articles, so although I haven't written the article yet or finished it, it will have been out now for 2 or 3 days. So check that out. And then if you want to be entertained on Twitter, follow him. You follow me too, but I really don't do anything entertaining. I'm bad at Twitter.
I'm at William Garrison. He's at Mike Kalani.
Yeah.
And
we'll announce all of our stuff, so it's a great way if you want to stay up on the site. You can follow us easily. So you can always make sure you never miss a moment of our faces or our witticisms and our beautiful thoughts. So here's looking at you, world.
Thanks for watching.
That's the 6th.
Yep.
This is Rational Discourse Weekly. Weekly. Oh, no. No, that was on purpose.
That'll go after the credits.
No. I don't want it.